All right, Arizona is looking to maintain a massive DNA database of anyone who has to be fingerprinted by the state for their specific job. Now, this can range anywhere from school volunteers to teachers to even real estate agents and many other roles that require fingerprint background checks. Now, under State Senate Bill 1475, it would also allow for medical examiner offices to take the DNA samples from any corpses that come into their possession. So for the living, this would cost them more than $250 for the honors. So joining us now to discuss this and break it all down, investigative journalist Ben Swann. All right, Ben, let's talk about this from, first of all, a privacy standpoint. It's enough that, okay, you want to get your job, you got to, get fingerprinted. That stays in a database already. But now it's DNA at the hands of the state, and it would allow the state to share it cross borders, cross agencies. Let's just put this out there. What could go wrong?
Yeah, well, basically anything and everything could go wrong. We've talked about these issues before, right? Because whenever any database of DNA is collected, it becomes hackable, it becomes available to anybody who wants to access it. Now, I do have some breaking news on this particular story. So even though that bill that was introduced in Arizona, as you mentioned, 1475, was going to require that everyone, school volunteers, it was going to require that people who were applying for real estate licenses and real estate brokers, anyone who worked for the state would all have to be put into this gigantic database. There has been such an outcry in Arizona that about 2 hours ago, an amendment was added that basically struck all of that and now has changed it to say that only professionals who care for patients with intellectual disabilities and in intermediate care will be required to put in their DNA. There was a huge response from people, especially within the mortgage and housing industry, who said, why in the world would you need to collect all of our DNA for us to be able to sell houses? Right.
I'm presuming that this has to do with that famous, now infamous case in Arizona, the Hacienda care facility of the incapacitated woman that was found to be pregnant, had the baby.
That's correct.
So, given that they've backed off on this, like you said, with tremendous pushback from the general public, how is Arizona going to explain this away? Why would they even try to pitch something like that?
Right, and that's the bigger question, right? And you make a good point. All of this is tied to this case out of Arizona, this Hacienda care facility where a woman was impregnated and DNA was used to be able to locate the individual involved in this. I think what they're going to now capitulate to is to say, well, look, that's the main case here. That's the main issue. And so we want to continue to protect these people. But then they're going to say, but we also want to listen to our constituents and listen to the voters of Arizona. The problem is exactly what you just said, that when you take the step, the stunning step of saying we're going to require everyone who has anything to do with the state to come into this DNA database, and everyone who dies will be included in this DNA database. You're creating such a massive log of information. And remember that DNA is not conclusive on many cases. So it doesn't mean that you're now going to suddenly solve all these old cases. You're suddenly going to have the ability to immediately solve crimes when they happen. That's not how DNA works. But what you will have, again, is a gigantic catalog that's essentially being forcibly taken from so many people in Arizona. And that's what it would have led to. And I think that's why there was such an outcry about it.
I would say that there is one good, I would call it a recommendation, I guess, saying that the morgues can take DNA from corpses. I wasn't clear on whether or not they meant it could be anybody that shows up in the morgue. People with friends and family that claim the bodies, obviously you wouldn't need that for identification. But to me, it read as if they could take DNA from all corpses that come through. There's got to be some good to come out of that, at least, right?
Well, I think there can be some good, but I don't think it should, again, be the right of the state to simply say, because you have died in our state, we now have the right to your DNA. Do family members have a recourse in that? Does family have the ability to say, no, we don't want you to take and to catalog the DNA of my father or my grandfather, whoever it might be? So I think there remain big questions about this. Yes, there's good that can come from it. There's good that come from all these things. But there's also the issue of privacy and what rights do you have to not hand over your DNA to the state? I think that's kind of the big overhanging question, not just in Arizona, but in every state now that's considering these drastic moves.
Yeah, note to lawmakers everywhere. Think it through before you put out a bill. All right, we'll leave it right there. My friend Ben Swann, thank you so much.
Thanks, Manila.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.